she got fired in retaliation for blowing the whistle on what was going on there in the court and what had happened. One of the other crises, and there's all these fires that have been set on the horizon, both purposely and some of the fires have been spawned as the predictable result of left-wing policies, which is one of these major fires is the crime crisis. And you have soft on crime prosecutors infamously associated with the Soros operation and that far left contempt for the rule of law and the rights of Americans to protect themselves from predators. And then you have soft on crime judges in the judicial system where the judges just don't want to enforce the law strictly or competently in some cases against dangerous criminals. And we had a case in Alexandria where a magistrate, former magistrate now, Liz Fuller, who's our client, kind of blew the whistle on some of this. And what had happened was someone was arrested for the rape or attempted rape of a woman, and he was almost immediately let out of jail, and he went on to kill her. And our client found out that the bail bondsman who helped get him out had let him stay at his house, and he actually used this guy's car, and I think it maybe even weapon, in the commission of this murder. And so she blew the whistle, got the bondsman held accountable. Someone asked her about it, so it was a separate case apart from her judicial duties, and she gave her point of view to a local newspaper, and she got fired in retaliation for blowing the whistle on what was going on there in the court and what had happened. So we're representing her in a civil rights complaint alleging that she was fired in violation of her civil rights, her First and 14th Amendment rights. And we just had a hearing on it this week because the government, the lawyers for the judicial officials that our client is suing, is trying to get the case dismissed. So the hearing took place this week before a federal court judge. I'm not sure how it's going to go. The judge asked questions of both sides, didn't give an indication, according to my understanding, of how she might rule. So we'll see what happens. But it goes to show that there's all sorts of permutations and work that needs to be done to vindicate the rule of law and address this crime crisis, which means also defending those public officials who are blowing the whistle as to what's going on. And here's some of the additional detail. A man named Ibrahim Alaki Buiachi was arrested and indicted by a grand jury on or about January 13th, 2020 for burglary with the intent to commit murder, abduction, sodomy, strangulation, and rape of Karl Elizabeth Dominguez Gonzalez. Notwithstanding the seriousness of these charges, the Alexandria Circuit Court, which Alexandria is a suburb, essentially a stone's thrown away from Washington, D.C. in Virginia, the Alexandria Circuit Court released this man on a $25,000 bond, only $25,000 in April of 2020. Less than 4 months after his release on bail, Buiachi on July 29, 2020, reportedly drove to Ms. Dominguez's residence in Alexandria and shot and killed her outside her apartment complex. And this is how we describe the issue. In the immediate days following the news reports about Ms. Dominguez's murder, plaintiff learned, Liz Fuller, from a police officer in the citizen lobby of the magistrate's office that the vehicle and gun reportedly used by Buiachi to murder Ms. Dominguez belonged to the surety bail bondsman, Man Nguyen, who posted the $25,000 bond for Buiachi's release. On information and belief, the bondsman and the officer struck casual conversation while they were waiting in the citizens lobby when Nguyen said that it was his gun and car that Buiachi used to murder Dominguez, and he had let Buiachi stay at his house while he was away on vacation. The officer subsequently relayed the information to the plaintiff, Liz Fuller, as part of the casual conversation among friendly colleagues outside any hearing or proceeding. So the point is, she didn't learn about this in the course of her judicial duties. She heard about it around the water cooler. And then on August 6th, Fuller, in her personal capacity, filed a complaint with the Commonwealth of Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services alleging that the bail bondsman had violated the rules and regulations of his licensure as a surety bail bondsman. And on September 1st, the bail bondsman's license was suspended and revoked as a result. And Fuller understood this, concluded the matter. And more than a year later, a local newspaper asked us about it, got hold of the information by using the Freedom of Information Act. And they found out about her complaint. And they asked Fuller for comment. Fuller commented as follows. Negan came to work in the days following the murder, nearly boasting and joking about the fact that the gun and car belonged to him and Buiachi had stayed at his home. And he was telling the officer about what happened and almost bragging about it. The officer said to me, "You will never believe what he just said to me." So I said, "I've got to do something about it." And 5 days after that story was 5 days after that story was published, Liz Fuller was placed on administrative leave, and she was fired on October 19th. So they accused her, in my view, actually in our view, falsely, of violating the rules that a magistrate shall abstain from public comment about a pending or concluded proceeding. There was no proceeding she was commenting on that was pending or concluded, or that was before her. In early 2021, she filed a grievance appealing her termination and denied it. So we're saying that her firing was in retaliation for protected speech, and the judicial canon used to justify her firing doesn't apply to comments made about a public filing made in her personal capacity. At all relevant times, Fuller was engaged in constitutionally protected speech when she made the comments to the newspaper, which undeniably addressed matters of public concern. Plaintiff enjoys the right to freedom of speech as guaranteed by the First Amendment of the United States Constitution. That includes the right to comment to the Alexandria Times as to her public complaint filed in her personal capacity about the misconduct of a bail bondsman and its outcome and the system's failure to protect a rape victim. So this was a rape victim who was murdered after he was let out of jail on a low bond and actually had been given access to this bondsman's car and a gun and killed her with it. And who gets fired? The magistrate who blew the whistle on it in her personal capacity as a citizen. And as I said in the release, the fact remains that an innocent woman is dead because she was murdered by a rapist who was let out of jail. The Virginia court should not have fired the magistrate who blew the whistle on the court bondsman whose misconduct enabled this murder. Our client, Liz Fuller, is a hero. Her constitutional rights were violated because she embarrassed Virginia court and political officials over their deadly soft on crime policies. That's what this case is about. So I tell you what, if this goes on, how are we going to control crime? If citizens who work for the judiciary doing their due diligence and doing everything we would expect a citizen to do to try to get justice for a poor woman who was murdered gets fired because she said, "This is what I did." Outrageous. So this is a federal case, and I hope the court lets it go forward, and I hope our client gets justice. But even if she doesn't get, you never know how a court case is going to go. You never know what the courts are going to do. But I hope you are educated, and this is some of the value of what Judicial Watch does here is this litigation. We obviously want justice for the clients, but the litigation is also important because it educates people about what's going on. And we don't put forward these allegations lightly. We think they're true, and people need to know about it. So this is a valuable public interest legal work that's educational, that hopefully will get justice, not only for our client, but indirectly for this poor woman who lost her life because of failures by the justice system that's supposed to take and try to take due diligence, take proper steps, reasonable steps to ensure that citizens aren't victimized and innocents aren't victimized by the criminals they're supposed to be protecting us from. So that's a great little case. And it's not even a little case. I think it's a big case because it also talks about the rights of judicial officials to speak out on matters of public concern without the ethics rules being used as a vehicle to suppress their First Amendment speech in a way that's completely improper.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like our video down below.